You are being interviewed.
I'm a special guest.
Should I turn I should maybe turn the light on
Right.
you, like the interrogation light. Hello, and welcome to Middleish, the podcast about moderation in all things. I am Erin Green.
And I am Michael Gray.
And hello.
Hello. Hello.
Happy day. I know.
Day. How's it going?
Pretty good. So I want to tell you about this really interesting day I had yesterday.
Ooh. All right. I like interesting days.
So it started Monday. I had gone out back, and we don't spend a lot of time out in the back of our house. We actually sit out front on our front patio quite often, but we're not out back very often. So I'm back there and kind of cleaning up, the patio. And I look up and there's these two they look like young squirrels staring at me from the rain gutter. Mm-hmm. And there's kind of like this, it's a part on the house where like there's a higher point of the roof that overlaps a lower point of the roof. And so there's a little gap, and they're just looking at me, checking things out. And then they dart away. And I'm like, they look kind of young, like babies, except babies that are old enough, obviously, to peek their heads out and, right. Maybe leave the nest. So fast forward to that evening, and I'm hearing this like scratching around kind of some noise. And I thought it was like the wind maybe blowing the screen door or something. And so I kind of walk, and I'm in the kitchen, and I'm walking toward a place in the house where that roof overlaps, like that very same spot where I saw the little squirrels checking me out earlier in the day. And I'm like, I bet they have a nest up there. And I'm listening, and sure enough, you can just hear the scratching around. There's a critter up there in the ceiling somewhere. So Matt gets home, and I'm like, will you just listen to this and see what you think? And he listens, and then he goes around back and he looks in that little gap, and he can see like a little hole in there where obviously it would be a wonderful, inviting place for a squirrel to go, have some babies and raise their babies. So I grew up on a farm where mice are incredibly destructive when they nest into things, right? Sure. Like they eat through wires, they chew through metal, and they just pee and poop everywhere. And they breed so quickly. So I'm having visions of these squirrels like destroying everything up in the roof of this house. And this isn't even our house, we rent. And so I call the property manager and, talk to her and tell her, this is what we're seeing. How do you want to handle it? And meanwhile, I'm talking with our friend Karen, who listens to the podcast, and she just, volunteers with wildlife and loves critters. And I'm kind of like, okay, you're the squirrel lady. Like, why don't you come and take these off my hands? She lives in California, so she can't. But to make a long story short, we found this wonderful organization here in Boise called Animals in Distress. And one thing Karen was like, please handle this humanely. Like, please take care of them. Don't and don't call an exterminator. And so these people came to my house, and this group of locals they know how to take care of critters, and they rescue them. And sometimes they keep them as pets. I didn't know you could keep a squirrel as a pet, but you have to raise it from a baby. So it's not wild, crazy, but they can turn into pets. They like to chew. They like to chew everything, but I guess they're really pretty clean. Like it's not like they just poop all over the place. And they're not destructive in the sense that mice are. They like to chew and explore things with their mouths. And so everything in your house will be chewed if you don't mind that. Some people really don't. But it was just a really enlightening experience, because I was kind of thinking like, we have to get rid of these squirrels. Like they're going to destroy the house, and this is a big deal. And as these women came over and were kind of telling me about all of their knowledge on squirrels and just, little wild critters in general and their experience with them, I started realizing like, this isn't, we don't have to move them. So I guess they'll nest and have their babies, and then they'll leave the nest and they're just gone. And
Hmm.
you can patch up that hole and it's done.
Really?
So if we just wait, if we just wait a few weeks until they're old enough and the babies leave the nest for good and mama leaves, we just patch up that hole and we're done.
So they don't live there?
No,
Where do they live?
they leave. I don't know, they live in trees or someone
But
else's attic. I don't know. I don't know. As long as
like
they leave mine.
somewhere else, I don't care. Not here. It's all that matters.
I know.
So do they make nests specifically to have babies just for that
I think
purpose?
so. I
Oh,
think
they're
so.
like, I'm not doing this in my own home.
Yeah, geez, I need somewhere warm, and
Right?
this house would be perfect for that.
And I'm not cleaning up the mess afterwards. So
Yeah,
go do it over
exactly.
there.
So we're just gonna leave. We're just gonna have the babies, have the nest, and someone else can clean up after me and take care of
Interesting.
this. So yeah, it was really interesting, and it actually made me feel a lot better that we didn't have to, you know,
Yeah.
worry about trapping these squirrels and then separating mom and babies and what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the gals came back last night with a laparoscopic camera so she could take this camera and just put it around the corner of the hole and kind of look around in there. And you could see the nest, like you could see all the leaves and debris and different things that they had nested, but there were no critters. And so obviously, whatever babies were in there are leaving the nest and but I just heard them like
Oh,
10
yeah.
minutes ago. So they're back.
So they're leaving,
they
but
haven't
not done.
Yeah, they haven't left for good yet. So we might just have to keep an eye on it. But anyway,
I don't think I've ever seen a baby squirrel like in the wild.
well, they hide. I mean, the babies are really tiny. Like I saw pictures from the gals yesterday.
That is adorable.
They're tiny little, they're actually kind of like, pink, hairless, kind of ugly at first, but I'm sure once they get fur and they start opening their eyes, they're freaking adorable.
So that's what you saw was like the pink, hairless, ugly versions
On the
peeking over.
pictures and videos that these.
Oh, what about peeking
gals.
over?
Oh no, they were older. Yeah, they were
Okay.
cute, like fuzzy.
I bet.
They looked young.
Yeah.
They're not like a normal sized squirrel, and they just looked young, and they just looked really curious and scared.
Adorable. Terrified.
What is that thing? What's that tall thing down there?
Adorable and terrified.
I know. So that was my interesting day yesterday.
Yeah,
I just
you'll have
wanted
to
to
keep
share that
us
story.
updated on that. The squirrel situation.
The little Karin calls them squoo mates.
Squoo.
Squoo.
Why
Squoo is her, squirrel. If you say it in a baby voice, it's squoo.
Oh,
I know.
Gotcha.
Squoo
I
mates.
thought that was some like medical term. Like that's what they call the nest that they make to have babies in, is the squoo or something. Yeah, I gotcha.
It could be.
All right.
I mean, you could call it that.
I put a little too much thought into that.
Nope, it's just cute animal critter talk. That's
adorable.
all it is.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. Yeah, good. It's been a busy week so far. Busy weekend, really busy last week, but all good stuff. Just lots going on with kids and families and stuff, but all good. Work's been busy, but good. Yeah. So
do you find that your work picks up in the spring?
I honestly have not found any consistent time of year for me. Never. And you think there would be. Like I've had so many Januaries and Februaries have just been crap, and you think they'd be great months as a trainer, and then like random, like, okay, October, I got like 7 new clients. Like what? Like what is happening?
I know.
Just like, and then the next year it'll be like, October will be crap and January's crap. And then like March is, and August, I haven't found any rhyme or reason. I know a lot of people say they do, and I don't know if it's just their businesses, but it makes no sense to me.
That's interesting because my business really slowed down in October, November, December last year. And then it was like partway through January, all of a sudden, I mean, I also work with a lot of athletes. And so I think in January is when a lot of athletes are really looking at their running season, their, triathlon season, cycling season starts kicking up. And that's when they decide like, hey, I need some nutrition help. So
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Kind of weird, but yeah, but it's been a good month. So yeah.
Awesome. We are
So
nearing the 1 year mark.
we are, yeah, this is episode 50 that we're recording right now. And we are kind of tripping a little bit
Mm-hmm.
about that because it's pretty freaking cool.
I know. It
A
is cool.
couple more weeks and we will have been doing this for a whole year. An episode every week for a year. Like not to pat ourselves on the
Yahoo.
back, but to pat ourselves on the back. Like
Yeah. High
it's
five, buddy.
yeah, it's taken some real dedication to do this every week for a year. And we've had to double up several weeks and yeah, but it's really cool that we're coming up on episode 52. I'm real excited about it. We don't know what we're doing
Yes.
yet, but I'm just
I know,
excited
but
to
we'll
do
we'll have
whatever it
something
is.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share this comment that I got because we do get quite a bit of feedback from our listeners. And, I'm sure it's this way with you, Michael, that like a text or, something just kind of a comment on an Instagram post or something like that. And this was a message from our good friend, Sean Watson, who is a listener up in Coeur d'Alene. And he said, I listen to your podcast all the time. It has helped to not only change my view on food, but also working out. He gave me a thumbs up emoji. Keep up the hard work. And he said, I can only imagine how much extra work that is for you guys. Which I appreciated two parts of that. First of all, the fact that he's a listener because he's a very good friend of mine and Matt's. He and Matt have been friends for decades, I think. And to hear that our good friends listen to this is actually a little more of an endorsement for me than you might think, because our good friends don't have to. I mean, we're going to be friends with them whether they listen to our podcast or not.
Yeah.
And you might think like, well, of course your friends would support you, but I have a lot of really close friends and family members that don't listen.
Mm-hmm.
Totally cool. That's fine. I certainly don't expect everybody to love our material and to listen to us every week, but I really enjoy hearing those people that won't bullshit you and
Mm-hmm.
come back and say, hey, I'm listening to what you guys are putting out there and it's really
Right.
valuable to me. And
Yeah.
thank you because
Yep.
it's helping.
Yep.
And
That's
then
awesome.
to acknowledge that, yeah, it's work.
Yeah.
It's quite a bit of work. So yeah, high five on the 1 year mark coming up.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And I agree. I think most of my friends and family don't listen. But I always feel like I can't remember where I heard this. It was a long, long time ago, and it was said better than this, but it was some of the effect of like there's like a curse of proximity, and like when you're close to people, like they just can't be as smart as they are to you. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to be your friend's not going to make a post that's going to blow your mind, but someone you
Yeah.
don't know could say the same thing, and you're going to be like, "Oh my god, this is life
That's
changing."
interesting. I bet
You know? And I think
that's
there's
a
something
thing.
to that. And I think it's because my friends and family know I'm also just an idiot, who like likes to laugh at fart jokes, and like they know me in that way and how juvenile I am, and stuff. And just they know me so much better that I think it's hard to have influence when you know people that closely. So
Mhm.
I think that's part of it too. So when that does happen, it's like, oh, okay, maybe we're doing
Yeah.
something really good here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool. And
Yeah.
so I love hearing that feedback. And so anybody out there, if you have a comment or feedback for us, positive or constructive,
Mhm.
please reach out to us and send us an email, comment on an Instagram post.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear from you.
Yep. And your ideas, like for podcast topics or things you'd like
Please.
to talk
Yeah.
about, or ideas for guests or just anything. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So today is kind of unique because I will be interviewing Michael.
Yeah, we have a special guest and it's me.
Michael didn't have to do
Wah, wah.
any preparation work for this podcast.
I had some
So,
coffee. I stretched.
okay, you're all ready.
Yeah,
Got your mind.
sure.
Did
As
you do your
ready as it
voice
ever is.
exercises? Me,
Oh,
me, me,
yeah.
me, me. So I wanted to interview Michael because we've talked about this a few times before on the podcast and kind of mentioned it in passing, but I'm not sure that our listeners all know that you are diabetic.
Mm-hmm.
And I, first of all, I just want to say that I think it's really impressive that all of our conversations on nutrition and food and lifestyle approaches and different things, you have this really wonderful perspective of, yes, you have your story, but not everything ties back to,
Right.
seeing it through this one lens. Like, you have such
Right.
a gift of seeing things from different perspectives of
Oh,
different
thank you.
people. And so I think this is our opportunity to hear how you see that through your lens and what this
Hmm.
has been for you, and to hopefully share with our listeners a little bit about your journey, and to maybe appreciate, wow, what a cool perspective you have on food and fitness and health and diet and all of this stuff,
Hmm.
um, despite
Yeah.
your diagnosis and living with diabetes.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that a lot. And I try to have that perspective. It probably really helps that I do what I do because I have to talk to people all the time with different perspectives and different conditions or limitations or strengths or whatever. So I feel like that probably really lends itself to me being able to see that more openly. But still, I thank you. I appreciate that. I'll take the
Yeah.
compliment. Absolutely.
So, going along that thread of you doing what you do in fitness and health and nutrition and working with people in that realm, I know that you started out in social work,
Hmm.
but maybe just tell us the story of how you got interested in fitness and
Okay.
diet and health, and kind of how that evolved, because I think that dovetails nicely into, it's sort of ironic that you ended up with a diagnosis that
Right.
directly relates to your chosen path. So maybe
Yeah,
tell
it
us
is
a
kind
little
of
bit about
funny.
how you came here.
So yeah, so I graduated from Northwest Nazarene University in Nampa, Idaho, with a bachelor's in social work, and immediately worked in the mental health field, um, in the St. Al Psychiatric Center there in Boise, and then down here in Houston, it was called the Miniger Clinic, which is one of the more well-known mental health hospitals in the country, which is really cool to work there. I worked with adolescents at the Miniger Clinic, which I loved, and then moved back to Boise, and worked for a little bit at St. Al Psych again. But I was kind of burnt out with that at that point. Like I don't separate things well, and I would take everybody's burdens home, and I was just kind of fried. And I was like, I can't do this any longer. And so I moved back to Oregon and was living with my parents at the time. Um, and let's see how this go. So I had a job that didn't work out, and I was like 28, 27, 28, living with
Mm-hmm.
my parents, didn't have a job, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. In Ontario, Oregon, which were, let's be honest, not a lot of opportunities there,
Sure.
right? And I had over the last year and a half, I'd been married before and been divorced somewhat recently to that, and coming
I
out of
didn't
that
know that
situation.
about you.
Really?
I didn't.
Oh,
No.
we'll edit
Okay.
this out. And then we'll just cut to you nodding knowingly, like, "Mhm, yeah, I know that. We've
Yeah.
talked all about this." You know, I was married
Interesting.
before?
I didn't. No.
Oh, I was married before. Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
so coming out of that, just gloss over that. Coming out of that, I I was living here in Houston at the time and didn't have anybody. So was living in a new apartment complex, and working out was just kind of like something to take up some time, right? And so I had worked out before, but never like regularly in any way, very sporadically, like a month here and then 3 years later, a month there, like not very much at all. Okay. Um, and so that became just kind of a thing like to do and to take up some time and to help me kind of cope with stress and that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I moved back up to Ontario, Oregon. Was still kind of getting into working out and reading, like, Muscle and Fitness magazine, all the bodybuilder magazines. And I
Sure.
just really got into, just very interested in, not in bodybuilding, but just in this whole fitness side of things. And I really saw an opportunity. What I think attracted me the most to social work was a chance to help. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I'm innately a helper. I
Mm-hmm.
like to help people. I like to hopefully leave people feeling better than, when before we interacted or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
but I just didn't want to do it in that social work way anymore. I didn't want to go on and get my license or my master's, zero interest. And so I kind of saw this, maybe I could help people this way, as a trainer. And so let's see, I think it was January of 2008. I had just joined a gym there in Ontario, and I talked to the owners like, hey, I'm thinking about maybe like being a personal trainer. Would you guys let me train here? I'm like, yeah, it's cool. Whatever, do it. So I had that in my back pocket, had this job, it fell apart. And somewhere around like July, August of that year was when I was living with my parents, no job, just like, okay, what am I doing
Yeah.
here? And so I thought, you know what? I'll give this a shot. And so I got certified and just started going, okay, this is, I guess, going to be my job for right now. And let's see if I can make this work. And I've been doing it ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then, so I think our uh, trajectories are kind of similar in that we
Mm-hmm.
both got interested in exercise and fitness and that, physiology
Mm-hmm.
and the physical fitness part of things. And then nutrition sort of emerged out of that, right? Your
Right.
interest in nutrition, which is how you got into
Yeah,
like precision nutrition certification. Tell us
exactly.
about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I went through, several years of personal training, probably giving advice I shouldn't have been giving, you know,
Mhm.
um, just because that's what you do as a trainer and that's kind of the standard.
You're
And
kind of expected to know everything.
yeah,
It's really
it's
odd, that
weird.
expectation that clients and just the
Hmm.
industry has.
And being a personal trainer is kind of like the Wild West. Like there's no governing body. There's
Wow.
no nothing. There's no like um, there's no like one certification process. There's a million of them. You could probably be certified as a trainer this afternoon if you wanted. And who's to say that that's bad or worse? You know what I mean? Like I have a really respected certification, but I also know people who have it that are terrible trainers.
Yeah.
I know people that have not gone through any certification and would be way better than a lot of the people I know doing it. So
Hmm.
it's just kind of a weird thing, but I chalk it up to just ignorance as a younger trainer. Um, and as I went along through the years, I gave less and less specific nutrition advice and more broad terms, right?
Hmm.
Because I realized, I don't feel like I should be doing that at this point. Um, and I think as I've gone along, even getting certified through precision nutrition, which was, is that 3 years ago? I think something like that. Um, I feel like my advice gets less specific and more general
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
more in terms of like, let's talk about, your relationships with foods. And I'm not diagnosing anything. I refuse to write a meal plan. I tell people like, if you want a meal plan, you're in the wrong place.
Right.
One, I'm not allowed to legally as a trainer,
Hmm.
right? That's not my jam. Two, I don't have the knowledge to do that. So I think it's irresponsible. But
Hmm.
I can help you eat more vegetables and move more and look at your relationship
Right.
with food and mindfulness and emotional eating. And so that's more my approach. It's still in that nutritional world, but it's gotten less and less around from like any kind of details. So anyway,
Yeah.
so I was doing that and I started following precision nutrition I think when they started, because I knew of Dr. John Berardi, who was the co-founder of it, really early on in my career as a trainer, and I just thought they were doing wonderful things. And I reached the point where it's like I really feel like this would be a really good um, weapon in my arsenal, as a trainer to have a better understanding of nutrition, to learn how to coach people better as a trainer, and nutritionally, just sort of lifestyle wise, that kind of stuff. And so I can't remember how long that certification took me. But yeah, I think it's coming up 2.5 years since I got
Hmm.
certified with them, something like that.
So at this point, you are still kind of operating from this place of, I mean, it sounds like physical fitness and just, general health was impactful
Hmm.
for you. And
Hmm.
so for you personally, this was like an avenue of, oh, I can, professionally help people too. Like I have
Right.
the skills from social work. I mean, man, you have incredible skills on behavior
Yeah.
change and, working with people and
A
counseling
lot carried
skills.
over. Yeah.
So,
Listening. Yeah.
so then I'm curious how maybe walk us through how you applied these things to yourself and maybe how the diagnosis of diabetes unfolded for you, because I'm really curious to hear what kinds of things you were doing for your own health and how this diagnosis, which I can only imagine was probably like a huge bombshell for you, because you're like, what the hell, like I'm a healthy person. Like what is happening to me? So maybe walk us through that next
So yeah,
next area.
so this would be, let me get my years right real quick. I think it would be like in the like summer, early fall of 2018. Um, I just started. So, I mean, I was a trainer. Um, I may have been in the process of getting certified with precision nutrition at that point. It was somewhere around there. So, the thing for me is I think a lot of trainers get into training because like they love fitness and they love being in the gym. And that was never me. I was never like a gym rat. Even as a trainer, it wasn't a place that I just like, I mean, I liked being there, but I didn't like, I was never a workout 5 or 6 times a week, anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw the benefits of it physically, just health wise, and knew the benefits of being a stronger person, and saw how, pushing in the gym made me a stronger person emotionally and mentally too, and how that impacted my clients' lives outside the gym. So it was always more of it wasn't a passion about that specifically. It was the means for that I chose to help people, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something I loved. I really enjoyed it, but it wasn't like I'm a gym rat kind of guy. So it didn't come
Mm-hmm.
from that. But so I was at a place where, I'm working out regularly, eating fairly well, a pretty healthy person. Um, and that summer of 2018, I just started like, there were weird things that I started noticing. Like I would get, really thirsty, like just like this unquenchable thirst. Or I would, all of a sudden I was like having to like pee a couple times a night. I'm like, what is going on? Like, why am I peeing? I'm not that old. Why am I peeing so much? Um, I'd get, like some fatigue sometimes, started getting these muscle cramps, and they were just kind of random and sporadic. And then they just kind of kept going and kept going, like everything was getting more often, a little more severe. And
And you
so,
couldn't tie this to like a workout or something. Cause sometimes I have to,
yeah,
I'll be like dumping water after a really long ride or
no,
something and get
yeah,
up.
it'd be like the middle of the night. Like I'd
Yeah.
wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and like drink like half a gallon of water. Like I could not get quenched, literally,
Wow.
and I'm just like, what the hell is going on? This is weird.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, being the idiot I am, I'm not going to the doctor. And Kathleen's like, go to the freaking doctor, dumbass. Like, what are you doing? Something's wrong.
You're
So,
getting the signals. Yeah. Your
right,
body is like,
literally
hello.
months later, okay, all this is
Wow.
progressing. It got to the point where I was I was awake in the night every 20 to 30 minutes peeing a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm like, how do I even have this much water in me? You know, like thirsty all the time. I would drive to Boise from Ontario, which is an hour away, tops, like
Yeah.
50, 55 minutes for people that don't know. I'd have to stop and pee 3 times. And like this
Wow.
urgency, like I can't control this. I'm going to wet my pants. Like you can't stop this. And so, and I was getting really bad cramps in the night. And so I finally went to the doctor and I thought, is it my prostate? Like, is something going on
Sure.
with that or what? And so they checked for that, which was super fun.
Yeah, I know. Right.
um, and they took my blood sugar, took some blood, did a few different things. And this was, I want to say like November, December-ish, I think, of 2018. I might be off, but it was towards the end of the year. And my doctor called me back. She's a good friend of mine up in Ontario. She called me back and she was like, hey, so you have diabetes. And I was like,
Wow.
no, I don't. Like, that's a dumb thing to say. Like, what are you talking about?
Is
And
it
she was
April
like,
1st? Like, what's
yeah.
the deal? Right.
And she was like, yeah, it's without question, you have diabetes. So
Wow.
for people that don't know, um, your blood sugar is kind of like a in the moment marker of kind of how well your body is processing glucose and getting out of your bloodstream and into your cells for fuel and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So a healthy range, like 130 is kind of the high end. If you're like above 200 at any point, you're a diabetic. When I went in, mine was
Mm-hmm.
like 650. It was like off the
Your blood
charts.
sugar was?
Yeah, it was 650.
No shit.
Yeah, like
Whoa.
crazy high.
That's wild. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm sure if I worked in the diabetes realm, I would probably have seen a blood sugar like that a time or two, but
it's
I
pretty
don't
high.
think I have ever seen a lab value that
Yeah,
out of
it's
control.
it's way up there. And then we also do something called A1C, which is, I get that done every 3 months or so. And that's just to see, that's like a longer picture of sort of how your body's processing.
Hmm.
Well, it gives an idea of where your blood sugar levels have been. And so they did that as well. And if you go like Google like A1C charts, like they usually top out around 12. Like this is like, holy
Yeah.
shit, this is way up
Yeah.
there. Mine was 13.1.
Oh boy.
Yeah. My doc was like, this is like crazy high. Like we don't even need to question it. Like you're 110% diabetic. And she's like, I need you to come back down to the office. Let me get you started on some insulin, get you some medication. Like we need to get you down into a range
Wow.
right away, because staying up there for very long, which I probably had been for months, it does a
Well,
lot of damage to your body.
yeah, and that to me is the one of the crazy things about this. We'll get a little more into your diagnosis and how
Mhm.
they explained it, but yours is adult onset, which most type 1 diabetes diagnoses happen in childhood.
Mhm.
So I think I was reading before we started here that 0.5% of adult
Yeah.
onset diagnosis diabetes cases are type 1, and
Yeah. It's
like
real rare.
yeah, it's very rare. So I find it fascinating that you had these symptoms starting, and I mean, thank goodness you finally went, and I mean, it was months
Listen to my
and not
wife.
years. Yeah, of going through this. Did you feel like shit when your blood sugar was that high? Because that can be
No.
like you didn't.
I mean, I
It was
was
just
exhausted
peeing all the time.
because
Okay.
I literally, like, I mean, if I went 40 minutes in the night without waking up to pee, and I would pee for like 2 minutes, like by the time I was done, I was
A
like,
lot.
I'm wide awake. I've been here a while. You can only do like the close your eyes and stay half asleep for so long before you're like,
Without making a mess, and then cat would get
okay,
on your
yeah,
ass for something else. Like,
right.
come on now.
So what I found out is the reason that happens is when your blood sugar reaches a certain level, your body tries to flush it out. So it's trying
Mm-hmm.
to get rid of fluids. Like, dude, we got to get rid of this stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why you pee more frequently, is to flush it out. And that gets you dehydrated pretty easily. So that's why you're so
Yeah.
thirsty. And it's just sort of this ugly
And
cycle of the body trying to handle it. Yeah.
think of all that work on your kidneys and
Hmm.
your system. Like your body is
Hmm.
literally just working and filtering and working and filtering. Yeah,
Doesn't stop.
it's why people have such
Yeah.
trouble with kidney
Hmm.
function
Hmm.
with uncontrolled diabetes.
Yeah. So I got that call, and I remember I was sitting on, like, we had like these steps down to like a little playroom and then head out the back door to the, what's it called? Driveway. Um, and I sat down on the steps and just bawled. I
Mm,
just started bawling because I didn't know much about diabetes. What do I know about diabetes? Oh, it kills
yeah.
people. People go blind and they lose their feet. That's what I know about diabetes.
Oh
And so
God.
just terrified, right? Like, what is going on and how is this possible? And at that point, I didn't know it was type 1. I just had that conversation. And so I'm thinking it must be type 2. And I'm going like, how? I don't understand this, because
Mm-hmm.
I eat pretty well. I have my weight's in a range that doesn't indicate that that's going to be any kind of issue, just all these things. And I just didn't really understand it at all. So um, I was real scared, to be honest, because I was like, am I going to
Mm-hmm.
lose my feet? Like, am I, not going to be able to see my grandkids because I'm blind from this? Like,
Wow.
I don't know what to
And
expect here.
the fact that your recollection of that moment is so vivid, like you
Mm-hmm.
can remember exactly like, oh, the steps down, to
Mm-hmm.
the playroom or whatever. I think anybody who's been through something similar, when they get life altering news, like
Mm-hmm.
that your life before that moment is different than how your life is going to be after that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything different, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a chronic disease. Like it's never going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
It's either going to be managed or get worse. Like those are the options, right?
Right.
And, you know, it's not the wisest thing to do, but you get something like that, you start reading about it. And one of the first things you read is, oh, this is the number 7 killer in
Oh
the
God,
United
you go to
States. Yeah.
Google doctor and
It's
you're
like
like,
top 10 of ways to die. Like
jeez.
it just kills a bunch of people. So it's just like, I was just like, holy shit, like this is terrifying. So I went back down to my doc. like right away. And she, like got me some insulin pens and some medication, was walking me through it. And I remember the first time, like trying to give myself insulin with that needle, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. Stabbing myself is not
Jeez.
something that comes naturally. Um, but
Oh my
also just
gosh.
being like so overwhelmed, like how I can't process this, and so we walked through, like, she said, you're type 1 for sure. Um, and she said, what can happen is you can sort of have this latent autoimmune thing in your body that is triggered with like real stress, trauma,
Mm.
something like that. And so our guess is, so when Kat had Sophie, if you're pregnant or going to have kids, maybe just skip this part because I don't want to freak anybody out. But she like was on death's door afterwards. She hemorrhaged,
Yeah.
lost 3 liters of blood. I'm holding Sophie as a newborn, thinking like, how do I raise 2 kids as a single parent? And it was really traumatic, incredibly stressful. And the months after were incredibly stressful because her recovery was very long, you
Mm.
know? And so it was just this really stressful time. And so our guess is that that event just triggered this autoimmune thing, and my pancreas decided to stop working, or shut down.
Interesting.
Yeah. So because I still had some insulin on board when I was first diagnosed. So it was just shutting down. Yeah.
Wow.
We don't know for
I've
sure, but
heard
that's our guess.
I've heard stories of that kind of, a traumatic incident, or people getting really ill with
Mm-hmm.
a virus or bacteria or something, and it sort of kicks something up in
Yeah.
their,
It's just been hanging
for an
around dormant.
autoimmune response,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden they develop new allergies or intolerances or like weird
Yeah.
things that come up. So that's really interesting. That was one of the things I wanted to ask you, is if there was possibly a genetic component that was,
Mm-hmm.
discovered, or if there was an explanation or a
Yeah.
hypothesis, at least,
Yeah.
how that happened.
That's our best guess. I mean, I guess it could have been
Wow.
anything else. Maybe my pancreas just sucked and it's been slowly dying my whole life. I don't know.
Maybe
But
it's just like TikTok, buddy,
right.
TikTok.
Yeah, it may have been.
I'm retiring soon.
But that's our best guess. Is that is
Wow.
that that was probably it. But who
Did
knows?
you feel as, I mean, yes, it was scary, and wow, all of a sudden you have these visions of the things that could happen to you, because
Mm-hmm.
this is what you know to be
Mm-hmm.
true of diabetes. Did you feel any stigma, or like you had done something wrong? Or, I mean, I'm just
Mm-hmm.
thinking, being in the fitness and health industry, I think you and I, we live it. We not just,
Right.
not only do we want to help people improve their lives and their physical health and their,
Right.
we do our best to live it. And I'm just curious if there was any of that swirling around where you're like, oh my God, all of a sudden I get this diagnosis. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what the hell?
Yeah, I was embarrassed about it.
Mm.
I felt embarrassed about it. So this was a real moment for me where I became very aware of some biases that I didn't realize I had. Right. Because I
Yeah.
became very aware of the fact, like, I'm type 1, but what if people think I'm type 2? And my
Oh,
my assumptions about someone who has type 2 diabetes became very clear. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm worried about this thing because of how I view it. And what if someone sees me the way
yeah.
I see them?
Oh, wow.
So
That's
it
a
was a
profound,
real,
yeah.
yeah, it was a real, I mean, it took me a little bit to get there, of course, but it was a real eye-opening thing for me of, okay, like I need to really check my biases. And am I, viewing people, making assumptions about people with whatever conditions, or whatever histories or whatever, that are really unfair. Um, so yeah, it was, I was embarrassed, and I wasn't really embarrassed of the disease. I felt weak, right? Like I
Mm.
felt like I have this weakness now, and there's, I'm no longer in control. Something else is in control, and I just have to manage that thing, right? It's like,
Mhm.
I don't get to like close the gates on the monster in the cave. That doesn't happen. I just got to constantly try to keep it in there, right? Because there's no just closing the gate and walking away. And so I felt that felt like a weakness to me, like my body had kind of like turned against me, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
And it took me a while before I was really comfortable telling people, because I felt I guess a shame is probably the best word. It seems like a strong word, but I had a real strange negative reaction to getting that news.
Mm.
And I felt very, I was very angry. I felt very embarrassed about it, and I felt kind of shameful about it for some reason. Yeah.
I remember when you reached out to me after your diagnosis, and I don't know
Mm.
how long it was since you
I don't
were
remember.
diagnosed, but you reached out looking for a kind of a community of diabetic athletes, especially type 1. Um and I remember assuming it was for a client.
Hmm.
And so I had kind of been like, well, if your client is this and if your client is that, and I had kind of made this assumption. And then you were like, actually it's for me. And I was like floored,
Yeah.
not just number one, because I know that you take care of your health and that you live, our philosophies mesh. At the same time, at that point, I had never heard of anyone diagnosed with adult onset type 1 diabetes
Yeah.
unless they had like some severe
Yeah.
medical, some happening.
Yeah. It's real
Um,
rare.
yeah, so it was crazy. And I can only imagine that seeking out a community, like some kind of a support community, how quickly did you, or I guess maybe how did that shift happen where you came from this place of feeling embarrassed and shameful and not wanting to talk about it, and maybe even this might relate to the stages of grief too,
Hmm.
right? Because
Sure.
people like get in denial and then they get pissed and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
How did that go for you, and how did you start reaching out to like connecting with other communities that you know
Yeah.
have experienced this?
So as far as the stages go, I honestly just kind of skipped denial because I just felt scared. Like I got to get this under control. I don't
When there's
have,
lab values there, you
yeah, that are
can't deny
like,
it.
yeah, the charts we make don't go that high. It was very clear. It's like, okay, you got to get it together and you got to manage this. And I just kind of went straight to angry about it
Sure.
because I didn't understand it. It just didn't make any sense to me. And granted, at that point, I still had a huge lack of understanding about the disease and how, just all I knew was sort of just these things I'd picked up through life. And, you hear about someone's uncle who, yeah, why don't they have a leg? Because they have diabetes, why are they, and that's
Mm.
kind of what I knew. So I was still operating from that place too. So I really searched out like on Instagram, like some type 1 communities and that kind of stuff. And it was, it was a double-edged sword there because I really found a lot of people who were living very boldly and openly, uh, telling the world about their type 1 and helping other people to manage it and that kind of stuff. So that really helped me go like, okay, this can be a thing that I can adopt and still live very healthy life. Like I'm seeing these people who are doing all kinds of wonderful things as type 1 diabetics. But I also saw in those type 1 communities, there were just a lot of people being assholes about type 2 diabetics. Like it
Mm.
was, I need to make it very, y'all need to know I'm not one of those type 2s. I'm not
Mhm.
that. Don't you
Mm.
dare call me that. Then there was this real, like, there was a lot of judgment that's when I recognized, like, oh, okay, that's what I'm doing. And I don't
Yeah.
want to be a part of this,
Wow.
So I don't really do much in those communities anymore because of that. So I kind of got, sounds bad, but like I got what I needed and kind of left,
Yep.
because for me, it was like, I get what they're doing, but I don't like being a diabetic it's a part of who I am, but it doesn't define me. And I don't want to run in circles where it's like, I'm type 1, Betty, I'm the type 1 coach. I'm type 1 this. I mean, so many of the like Instagram handles is type 1, type 1, type 1. And it's like,
Yeah.
this doesn't define me. It's something I have now. And, but I'm a bunch of other things. I'm still, Michael Gray, the trainer, and Michael Gray, the nutrition coach. And I'm these other things that being a type 1 diabetic doesn't impact or
Mm.
influence. I can use that now to relate to people and have a different angle, with people that need it, but I'm still the same person. And so it was good for me, I think, to get in those circles because it really allowed me to go, okay, it's okay to have this and it's okay for people to know about this and I can be a healthy person, but I also don't want to do it the way they're doing
Yeah.
it.
It's really interesting, isn't it, how you aren't aware of
Hmm.
those biases or that viewpoint that you might have, or your thoughts on those things, until you're actually in the
Yeah.
other person's shoes. Like, you're
Yeah.
living it now, and you have just a very different
Yeah.
perspective, and
And
it
that's,
almost internalizes.
yeah,
Yeah, like
exactly.
these things that you've been kind of observing from the outside, and all of a
Hmm.
sudden you're like, whoa, that speaks to me.
Hmm. And that's the thing is, I have friends who've been type 2 diabetics for a long time, and I've never thought negatively about them. I think just sort of that in general, when it came down to a specific person, I never felt that way, but sort of the overarching umbrella of things, I guess I had these real negative beliefs and assumptions that I didn't realize until I, yeah,
Hmm.
became a diabetic myself. And I was like, ooh, shoot,
Yeah.
that's kind of ugly,
So,
Michael.
yeah, totally. And has this changed how you work with clients, how
um,
you approach those kinds of things?
yeah, to a degree. I mean, I think I've worked with more diabetics than I probably would have normally because there's an understanding, like, oh, he's going to get what I'm going through.
Hmm.
Um, I think it also, it just, I feel like being empathetic is something I've always done fairly well. I've always been an empathetic person pretty naturally, but it's certainly, I think, increased that and made me a more empathetic person. I think it's helped me really check a lot of my assumptions and judgments about things just across the board. And it was a real turning point for me, just personally, of just kind of this moving into a way of thinking, like in terms of we don't know what's going on with anybody, like I think we're really good at assuming whether someone's a jerk to us or someone lives this way or eats this way. We make assumptions to make sense of what's happening, and I think this was a catalyst for me to begin to kind of deconstruct a lot of that and just look
Hmm.
at people more openly, and or when I do make those assumptions or judgments, to kind of check myself. You know what? I don't know. I could say I think it's because of this, but I really have no idea. And so I feel like it's helped
Yeah.
me approach my clients more openly, versus coming in with maybe some things already decided in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us how this has changed your eating, your daily habits. Has it, I mean, I can only imagine it's changed some of your
Yeah.
patterns with eating and food, but maybe tell us a little bit about this now.
Yeah.
You
So
have
when I
this
was first
diagnosis and
diagnosed, like I wouldn't eat a carb, like any kind of bread
okay.
or oatmeal. I mean, I'd eat vegetables, fruit some, because I just didn't know how it was going to
Hmm.
impact me. I didn't understand how my body was going to respond. And, that's one thing when you're diabetic, especially type 1 and insulin dependent, you got to figure out your insulin dose to carb ratio, right? Like, because you have to dose
Yeah.
your insulin appropriate to how many carbs you're going to get. And that can be a whole different thing because you got carbs with fiber and stuff, those process differently. You got really sugary carbs, those hit quicker. And so it was just this real unfun learning curve of just like, eating and taking my blood sugar and what did that do? And I did this much insulin and what did that do? And, that kind of stuff. So for a while, I didn't really eat anything. And not too long because it sucked, you know.
Yeah.
And I like carbs, so um, so I definitely pulled back real severely at first, and then kind of like, well, I would probably do a little bit of the feast or famine kind of thing. I do it for a
Mm,
while, and it would be like, screw it, this sucks, and okay, I should probably go back to that because until I really begin to understand how my body could handle carbs. I was also metformin, an oral
okay.
medication, which gives you some leeway with how many carbs you can eat and taking a little
Hmm.
bit less insulin. So, it just took a while. It was pretty bumpy for a bit. It still can be bumpy, to be honest. There's sometimes I take my blood sugar. I'm like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
why is it 300? Like, this doesn't make any sense,
Uh-huh.
and maybe I'm missing something, but I feel like there's so much that goes into that. Like, how well I've slept, stress levels. It just feels like there's a
Hmm.
lot that goes into that. Or there's times where it's just like, oh, here we go. I'm tanking. It's dropping. I don't know
Yeah.
why right now. I don't understand. you know. So it's still bumpy to a degree, but it's definitely leveled out a lot. But over time, I began to introduce carbs pretty normally again.
Hmm.
You know, I honestly I go through periods. It's there's something they call, what is it, like diabetic fatigue or something,
Uh-huh.
um, where it's just the shit gets old. It's like every meal trying to
Yeah.
figure out how many carbs you're eating and where's my blood sugar now and how much insulin do I need to take? How active am I gonna be today? Because that's gonna
Hmm.
impact it too. You take insulin to match everything you eat, and then you go be active. Well, then you're gonna tank because you need some carbs to fuel what you're gonna do. You need some blood sugar.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a disaster a lot of times, and it just gets really old. And so there have been some periods, honestly, where I haven't managed it near as well as I should have because I'm just tired of it. I'm
Yeah.
tired of taking my blood sugar 5, 6 times a day. I'm tired of taking insulin, multiple times a day. And it just gets old. And then after a while, you go, okay, listen, man, like this is your life. You got to get it back together. But so how I eat now is it's not too terribly different than what it was before. I'm more conscious about like some things. Like I weigh carbs a lot more, not like more emotionally. Like, okay, do I really want this? Is this something I
Sure.
really want to take insulin for? Where before I may not.
Yeah.
Like there's just some things I really just don't ever
A little
eat
more
because they're not worth it.
scrutiny on
Yeah,
what you're
yeah,
going to have and
exactly,
what does
exactly.
this do for me?
Exactly. Yeah, so there's a lot more being conscious in that way. I'll also go through some periods where I just want to rely on insulin less, so I'll eat
Mm.
lower carb for a while just because I just want to not be so tied to that. I
Yeah.
want to feel not so dependent on it. And I don't know if there's any kind of tolerance built up to insulin taking it, through injection or not. But I
Hmm.
worry about that too. It's like, okay, I want to stay as sensitive as I can to it so that I
Yeah.
don't have to start taking where I would normally have to take, a couple units. Now I'm taking 3 or 4 or 5. And I just don't want to get in that place. So I just kind of check myself every now and then with that as well. But
Do you change the types of carbs? Did you adjust like, oh, I need to have more fiber rich carbs, or I need, a little bit
mm-hmm,
slower acting carbohydrates,
mm-hmm.
or if I'm going to have this carb, I need to make sure that I have some protein and fat and kind of the context of a meal with it. Any of that
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely eat like less bread stuff a whole bunch. I like sandwiches and that kind of stuff. I almost never eat them anymore.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I I will often, opt for something that has a lot lower carb value, and I like to try and prioritize things that are going to metabolize slower, so I don't have that
Yeah.
spike in my blood sugar. But at the same time, I mean, I love cereal. I'll still eat cereal. I'll
Yeah.
crush a bowl of Captain Crunch or Cocoa Puffs because I love it. But I also like, my breakfast. I try to keep pretty simple. I mean, we make waffles for the girls sometimes or pancakes. I usually don't have any
Hmm.
pancakes. Um, I'll eat way less waffles, and it's like I got to make sure I have protein with this just to kind of help stabilize stuff. And so it definitely has changed the way I eat. In those terms. But I also, it's like I'm not going to hate the way I eat, and I'm not going to deny myself things that I enjoy either, because it's
Hmm.
just not worth it to me. You know.
What kind of, I mean, this sort of wraps up nicely what I was going to ask you about, any advice or I don't know, encouragement for people who have been through any, I
Hmm.
mean, we're talking about diabetes and your specific instance, but I have to believe that just about anybody who's listening to this has been through some kind of life altering,
Hmm.
change or discovery or diagnosis or something where it does feel like overwhelming. This is
Hmm.
forever. I never get a break from this ever again. What kind of perspective or encouragement do you have?
I think so. Like, if anyone's in the middle of that sort of like, it's the bomb's just gone off. I think just know that this is probably the worst part of it.
Yeah.
like looking back over the last 3 years or whatever, I think the hardest part was those first few months where I just didn't understand it. I didn't really know what was going on. I was just mad about it. Um, like another side to that. There's acceptance and there's knowledge and there's a way to feel like you have at least some sort of handle on it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think one of the biggest things that's been helpful to me that really helps me sort of move through this is to allow myself to still, I don't know if grieve is the right word, but like just have those bad days that are bad days. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
not even like blood sugar wise, but just those days or the times where it's just like I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm worn out from managing this thing because really it is like that. There's the monster in the cave and you're the only thing keeping it back. Then it's just constant. It's constant work, it's constant awareness, it's constant calculation, and it just gets old. And I used to like feel guilty when I would have those days where it's just like, F it. Like I'm not doing it today. I'm going to be mindful of it, but I'm not taking my
Right.
blood
You're not
sugar.
like on all, yeah,
Yeah.
firing on all cylinders.
I'm pumping the brakes because I need that just mentally and emotionally and just kind of stress wise. And I know that's not the best thing for managing my disease, but I feel like in those moments, it's the best thing for me as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
because then I'm able to dig in deeper and be more on top of it and that kind of stuff. And so for me, I think that's been one of the biggest things that's helped me manage this is just realize like I'm not going to be on my A game all the time, and that's okay. It's okay to have those days where I just don't want to do it. And maybe I don't
Yeah.
manage it as well as I should, but I got to do this for the rest of my life. Like
Yeah.
there's no break. There's no it going away for a little bit or remission. It just doesn't, it's only, like I said, it's either managing it or worse. Those are my
Mm-hmm.
options. And I'm 40 years old. Like hopefully I got another 40 or 50 years left. And that's a long time to
Yeah.
just never, ever pump the brakes and go like, okay,
Yeah.
let me just set this aside for a minute. So that would be, I think, my encouragement. It's just like, let yourself feel what you feel,
Mm-hmm.
and be okay with that. If you're angry, if you're tired, if you're exhausted, like you're that for a reason. Don't feel like you have to deny that in the name of taking 100% peak care of yourself all the time, because
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some taking care of yourself and letting yourself breathe for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
that'd be
I
my
mean,
encouragement.
that's an excellent message and very well put, because I think showing oneself grace is so hard to do.
It's really hard.
Especially if you do have, some pretty significant consequences
Hmm.
to, if I don't do this, all of a sudden it kind of blows up into this like huge catastrophic thing where you're acknowledging that, yeah, I have to manage this for the long
Hmm.
run. So I better give myself some periods of rest, a
Right.
little bit of mental rest, a little bit of emotional rest. Um, and that will help you kind of springboard into the next day or the next week or
Right.
whatever with renewed, you know,
Right.
focus. So
Right.
that's a great message.
Well, and as far as I understand, and I may be wrong, so don't quote me on this, or I'm not a doctor giving advice, but my understanding is that, when your blood sugar is elevated a little bit, that's a dangerous thing over a long period of time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like low blood sugars are dangerous in the moment. Like this is a
Mm-hmm.
crisis, right? We don't want you going into a coma or anything. But the higher blood sugars, if they're up for a little bit and back down, that's kind of like, okay, there's not really any concern there. They need to be elevated for a while. And that's when you start having like hardening of the arteries and stroke, that kind of stuff. So there's a little bit comfort for me. Like, okay, if I'm a little bit high for a day, I'm going to wrap it up tomorrow. I'm going to be back down. Things are going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's manageable, and that may not be the best approach, but it's the only way I could give myself some of that reprieve that
Yeah,
I
and
feel
make
like I
it kind of
need sometimes.
livable.
Yeah.
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 I think it's been a long time since I've worked specifically with diabetes, but I also recall hearing that like wild swings in blood sugar,
Mm,
constant like wild swings are also very detrimental. And so if you're controlling it in a certain range, like you said, for the most part, you're pretty consistent with like keeping it, pretty controlled in a certain range. I
yeah.
think that can probably be
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
helpful goal. So
And you mentioned this real quick. Just if there's any other diabetics out there listening, I'd be interested to hear your responses. So like I said, I don't, when I'm high, unless I'm like 300, 400, that's when I start having to pee a lot. That's when it's like, oh, I just went to the bathroom. But in
yeah,
that other range, I don't even know anything's going on. When I get low, garbage, like
yeah.
hot fire, like I feel terrible. And it often wrecks my day,
Oh man.
So it'd be interesting if there are any diabetics out there listening. Like, do you feel terrible when you're high? What do you feel like when you're low?
Right.
What's that experience like for you?
Yeah.
Be interesting.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing
Yeah,
your story. This was fun.
that was
I'll
fun.
interview more often.
Yeah, we gotta get you on the other
Good
side
stuff.
too. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I'll
don't
put on
know.
my interviewing
I don't
hat.
Okay.
Did you know I have an interviewing hat?
Give me some softballs. Give me some
That's right.
softballs. Make it easy.
What's your
Um,
favorite color?
yeah. I was actually thinking about that today on my mountain bike ride, and I was like, today my favorite color is yellow because the wildflowers were so gorgeous and yellow. But honestly, my favorite color is green, and
Yeah,
that's purely coincidental that my last name is Green and that my
that's
favorite
funny.
color is green because it was green. Anyway,
Yeah, as a
what's your
parent,
meaning?
you have to know your favorite colors because you get asked all the
Uh,
time. Yeah,
yeah,
all the
yeah.
time. Yeah, yeah.
Is it
What's your
still
favorite
the
color,
same?
Daddy? What's your
Is it
favorite
still
color,
the
Daddy?
same?
Yeah, has it changed in the last 2 days? Because mine's changed 10 times. What's yours now? And you're
I
like,
love it.
green, I guess,
Yeah,
red.
I
I
don't.
kind of like black.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't care.
you pick. Tell me what my favorite color is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sophie really wants mine. Daddy, is yours pink and blue and all the colors of the rainbow? Yeah, that's her thing right now.
Yeah, it
Yeah, I'm
is.
like,
Of
yeah, of
course.
course, it's all of them. Pink and blue and all the colors of the rainbow.
You should really blow her mind and tell her if you mix all the colors together, you get white.
Yeah, yeah, short circuit her. See smoke come
What?
out and sparks.
It still doesn't. I still short circuit when I hear
It
that, and
makes no sense.
but I mean, I learned this in art classes in college, and I was just like, when Matt and I talk about this now, I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah,
Um,
because when I do that with my paint, it doesn't happen.
no, I know it turns out to be like some baby poop brown. I don't know, like
Imagine if you
that's what
like
I
mixed
get when
all
I
your
mix all
paints
the
together and
colors.
they turned white. Yeah, I'd freak out every time.
Uh, do you have a meaning in the mundane this week?
I do. And at the risk of sounding cheesy, because it's not cheesy at all, it is this for me this week.
Oh,
Aaron and I were talking about before we started recording, just how much we love doing this. And I can say it's last week. I can say it's this week. I don't know. It could be both. Um, this is often something that she and I feel like, okay, like we got to get it in, and it maybe feels like an interruption if we've got a lot more going on. But we were just talking about this every single time we do this, when we get to, I mean, just 2 minutes into it, but at the end of it, it's just like, man, that was fun. I love
mm-hmm.
doing this. And it's, I mean, I guess you could say it's a mundane thing because we do it weekly, sometimes twice a week, right? But it just hasn't lost any thrill for me. It hasn't lost any excitement. I always feel better after we're done doing it. I genuinely enjoy, doing this with Aaron. I really enjoy just doing this, and it's a highlight of all of my weeks. I don't think there's been once that it hasn't been, you know, work wise in the top 5 things, awesome things that have happened. And it's just, I love doing this. And so that's mine
It's
is,
super
is
fun.
recording
Yes. Thank
Middleish.
you.
Yeah.
I love you, partner. And
Yeah.
there were so many times when during the pandemic, you were like my only true
know, right?
interaction for the week because I just didn't, whatever was going on, I didn't have
Mhm.
client meetings or whatever. So it was a very important part of my pandemic. You going to learn to drink there,
Yeah. I just
buddy?
poured
You
my
need
water all over
lessons.
myself. Need lessons for a lot of things.
um,
Uh,
so yeah, that's nice to hear. And my sentiments exactly. I love our conversations.
yeah, me too. Same.
So
Samesies.
my samesies, my meaning in the mundane this week came from cleaning out some old voicemails. So when you get a new phone, it'll copy over all your stuff, right? And for some reason, mine has duplicate voicemails on there. So voicemails that are from the same person on the same date. And I know that that's a duplicate. So I'm kind of going through and I'm re-listening to some of these things like, well, I've kept them for a reason. And there's some really old voicemails on there. Like some my mom singing me happy birthday on my
Oh,
birthday,
yeah.
years ago. And I came across one from 2016, I think, or 2015, where Matt had called me and left like this 2.5 minute long voicemail, which is pretty long voicemail. And it was just this very sweet, um, I won't bore you with the details, but basically, I was having a really, really rough day. And it was obviously on a weekend when I had a really big ride to do. And I was, in the thick of some prep for a race, whether it's an Ironman or a half or whatever, and just really feeling like I didn't want to do this anymore. And anybody who's been in, training for an event like that or seasons, back to back to back seasons for like Ironman training, you have those moments and they're very
Yeah.
real. And you really question like why you're doing this. And Matt's message was just so supportive and loving and genuine. And the fact that he knows I'm out there riding for the next 4 hours, I'm not going to get this message. He called my phone and left this message and just kind of obviously for him, he needed to, get these words out while he's thinking them and feeling them. And it's, I know Matt's always there for me, but to hear that, like to hear the words again and to remember that moment and what that was like, and to know that this was like 5 years ago or whatever it was just it was really sweet. And it's almost like finding an old love letter or something and being like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that person sent that to me. But yeah, that was mine. It was just a really cool moment where you're not expecting to have that real true emotional kind of burst inside of you, but then all of a sudden it's there and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm the luckiest person in the world.
Oh,
Like,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
it was great.
Yay. I love that. That's great. I bet that felt amazing.
Yep. And I
Yeah.
sent it to him. I texted it to him and I was like, do you remember this? And he's like, oh, what's the date on that one? Like
Yeah.
he remembers. I mean, let's be honest. There were lots of moments where I needed a pep talk in that manner. Poor guy, needs to be on the clock. Like every weekend, I need that pep talk. But now I have a recording so I can listen to it whenever I want.
Yeah. And he's off hook. He doesn't have to do it anymore.
I know exactly. He can.
You didn't
One
play
and
it.
done.
You didn't play it. And we're like, remember when you used to say things like this to me?
No, I did not do that at all.
Good.
If I ever want to hear some of those sweet words again, I will not throw it in his face that way.
This was fun. I hope it was interesting and informative and helpful for people.
Yeah. So thank you for being game, for letting me interview you.
Yeah,
and to our listeners, please send us feedback, share this podcast, follow us on Instagram, and we will catch you next week.
See ya.